If hard work alone guaranteed wealth, why do some groups in America hold most of the nation's riches while others, who work just as hard, remain financially stuck? The truth is, our financial system has rules, history, and biases that shape who gets ahead, regardless of effort. To succeed, you need to understand the system, not just work within it. Today, we're tackling the racial wealth gap, a real issue with real consequences for families and communities. This isn't about politics, it's about understanding how history and policy shape who builds wealth in America. Financial success isn't just about personal choices, it's about knowing the rules of a system that hasn't always been fair. Our mission: give you the knowledge to level the playing field. The racial wealth gap isn't about income, it's about wealth, what you own minus what you owe. Wealth is security, opportunity, and the ability to pass something on. The typical white family has nearly 10 times the wealth of the typical black family, even at similar income levels. This gap isn't new, it's the result of generations of unequal opportunity. Focusing on income alone misses the bigger picture. Asset ownership is where the real divide lies. The numbers reveal a system where the starting lines were never equal. Black families are 14% of the US population, but hold only 4 to 5% of the nation's wealth. White families, 65% of the population, control nearly 80% of the wealth. This isn't about work ethic, it's the legacy of policies that blocked Black Americans from building wealth. The tools for wealth, land, credit, business loans, were systematically denied. Understanding this history is key to finding real solutions. Emancipation ended slavery, but it didn't provide economic opportunity. Nearly 4 million freed Black Americans started with nothing. No land, no money, no assets. While others built fortunes, Black Americans faced sharecropping and exclusion from wealth building. The end of slavery was not the start of Black wealth. It was the start of a struggle to build from zero. This empty-handed beginning is the root of today's wealth gap. The effects of starting with nothing still echo in today's disparities. Before the Civil War, enslaved Black labor powered the U.S. economy. Cotton alone was 60% of exports. The wealth created by enslaved people built fortunes for others, but when freedom came, Black Americans received nothing, no compensation, no land, no share of the wealth they created. The value stayed with the enslavers and institutions, leaving Black Americans to start from scratch. The economic debt was ignored, ensuring a massive head start for some and a struggle for others. The playing field wasn't just uneven, it was never even close. Wealth doesn't begin with freedom or a paycheck. Real generational wealth starts with assets and access, like land, a business, or stocks. With assets, you can build, grow, and pass down wealth. But for many Black Americans, access to these tools was denied, making the wealth gap inevitable. Banks are the engines of economic growth, powering financial mobility and prosperity for individuals and the nation. They provide access to capital, credit, and leverage, essential tools for building wealth. With banks, you can control large assets with small investments, multiplying your opportunities. Without banks, you're cut off from these tools, forced to rely only on what you can save. After the Civil War, banks became engines of opportunity for white Americans, but locked gates for Black Americans. For generations, Black communities were denied access to banks, loans, and even basic accounts. Many had to hide savings at home, with no path to credit or wealth. This financial lockout fueled a wealth gap that still echoes today. Locked out by the system, Black communities turned inward and built their own. If the existing tables weren't open, they built their own tables. This led to Black-owned banks, credit unions, and mutual aid societies, born from necessity and self-reliance. These banks became beacons of hope, pooling resources to fuel local growth and empower neighborhoods. Their success meant the success of the entire community, creating a cycle of opportunity. But they faced a hostile economic environment, serving communities systematically impoverished for generations. With fewer resources, these banks operated on a razor's edge, resilient, but always at risk. After the Civil War, Southern laws like Black Codes and Jim Crow were designed to control, not liberate. These statutes enforced segregation, dictated where Black Americans could live and work, and trapped families in poverty. Banks then used this poverty as an excuse to deny loans, locking the door to economic mobility. It was a system built to keep black communities from building wealth. The banking system operated on a two-tiered model. For white customers, banks were a gateway to opportunity, offering mortgages, business loans, and credit to build a future. For black customers, the experience was starkly different: refusal of service, impossible standards, and predatory interest rates. This system weaponized capital, lifting one group up while forcing the other to climb a crumbling staircase. Black-owned banks were acts of resistance, bravely stepping in where mainstream banks refused. But with limited deposits and resources, they could only offer small loans, restricting community growth. Their survival was fragile, tied to a single under-resourced community. Self-reliance, while vital, has limits against a system built to hold you back. Homeownership has long been the cornerstone of the American dream, building wealth for millions of families. But for decades, black families were systematically denied this opportunity, blocked by banks, realtors, and government policies. This exclusion severed the chain of generational wealth, leaving many to start from zero, while the gap between the haves and have-nots only grew wider. Redlining was a government-sanctioned policy that drew literal red lines on city maps, marking black neighborhoods as hazardous. Banks then denied mortgages, trapping black families in deteriorating areas and fueling the racial wealth gap. Meanwhile, government loans built wealth in white suburbs, creating two profoundly unequal housing markets. Redlining was outlawed in 1968, but its scars remain. The neighborhoods once marked in red still face poverty, low property values, and fewer resources. This single difference in housing status, enforced by redlining, drives much of today's racial wealth gap. The legacy of redlining is still etched into the lives and balance sheets of millions of American families. Redlining may be illegal, but its legacy still shapes our cities. The lines drawn decades ago created deep divisions, visible today in the stark contrast between affluent and struggling neighborhoods. Cross a single street, and you move from opportunity to neglect. The echoes of redlining remain, dividing communities into zones of wealth and zones of need. Wealth flows toward opportunity, not good intentions. When businesses and banks leave, jobs vanish, investment dries up, and communities spiral downward. Residents are forced to rely on predatory lenders, trapping them in debt and cutting off capital for growth. This is economic segregation, where opportunity avoids entire neighborhoods, and intention alone can't reverse the tide. Black-owned banks are vital pillars in their communities, providing essential financial services where mainstream banks have often excluded or preyed upon people. They create pathways to homeownership and entrepreneurship, saying yes when others say no. But here's the catch-22. Serving underfunded communities means smaller deposits and less money to lend, limiting their growth and impact. Supporting black banks is crucial, but it's not enough. Real change requires systemic solutions to address the roots of economic inequality. After understanding the roots of the racial wealth gap, the question is, what now? The answer: focus on the same wealth-building pillars as always: access to capital, home ownership, business ownership, financial literacy, and time. Master these tools, work smart, and plant seeds today for a stronger financial future. The racial wealth gap isn't about ambition, it's the result of denied access and historic barriers. But your power starts now, with financial education and understanding money's rules. Build credit, invest, and make intentional moves every day. Each step shapes your future. Let's build a legacy of financial strength, starting today. The information provided in this content is for educational and informational purposes only, and should not be considered financial, legal, or tax advice. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, or legal counsel before making any financial decisions.